Ladies and gentlemen, we're here once again. This is How Pastors Are Made. I'm here with Pastor Lance here at Hope Fellowship in Prosper, Texas. And I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, man.
Really excited to finally speak with you. We've been talking about this
we have
for a moment,
yeah.
but we're finally here. And before I ask you any questions, the way I actually got to see Pastor Lance is technically it was online, but I did a giveaway. For those of you who don't know, I believe in doing something good. That's what my shirt says. It says do something good. And a few months ago, I went up to a gas station here in the area, and I just decided I was going to pay for gas of people who pull up. Like, there was nothing you could buy. The only thing I told people to was to follow me on social media. And so a guy pulled up, and I asked him if I could pay for his gas. He said, yeah, we had conversation. And it turns out that guy had recently met Pastor Lance here.
He actually helped move us in. He's one of our movers that moved us in here in Prosper when we moved here a year ago. So
it was pretty awesome. And then so that's how he found me on social media.
Yeah.
And I looked at him and followed him back. And, you know, I think it's awesome that this connection came from me doing something good because
I wish I was there. I wish I would have got free gas. So.
And a lady actually turned it down. I tried. Okay. She said, no, I don't need it. Thank you so much. For my husband, you know, he has a company car. Like, this is on the company car. Just take care of somebody else. I was like, oh, yes, ma'am. But not every pastor is willing to sit down and have a conversation or share some of the things that might get shared today. So the fact that I was able to get a man like you to sit down through me actually giving and sharing, I think that's awesome. So always encourage people, find a way to do something good. You have no clue who you'll help, how big of a deal it is for them. You also have no idea how you being a benefit to someone else will actually in the long run be a benefit to yourself.
That was good, man.
Thank you.
It was really good.
I appreciate it. All right. But I want to go ahead and just hop into this. First and foremost, Pastor Lance, where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Wichita Falls, Texas. So actually a small town outside of Wichita Falls called Holiday, Texas. Holiday spelled with 2 L's. So every day's a holiday and holiday. Anyway,
okay.
So yeah, small town, 2A. If you're in the state of Texas, you know, we're classification. So it's a 2A small town. Where there's one traffic light, you know, and things like that. So that's where I was born and raised all the way until I left to go to graduate school. So I was there and went to university there in Wichita Falls. And so, yeah.
What school is in Wichita?
Midwestern State University.
There it is. I thought about going there myself.
No way. Yeah.
I ended
it's a great
up
school.
At Dallas Baptist, but I thought about Midwestern.
Yeah, my wife went to Dallas Baptist. So
she must be a great lady.
Yeah.
So small town until graduate school. Where'd you go for graduate school?
So I decided, I had a mentor of mine that was, he was the college pastor for the college that met, the ministry that met on campus at Midwestern State University. And so I went to him and I said, hey, I feel called into ministry and I'm getting a business degree. Didn't really know what I was going to do. And he said, hey, have you ever thought about seminary or graduate school? And I was like, I think so. And the school that he went to was in Memphis. And so he was a mentor of mine. And so I just checked it out. Like, I was like, yeah, I want to go check out the school that you went to. You invested in me this past year. So yeah, I'd like to see that. Flew to Memphis, checked it out, and ended up deciding to pack up all my belongings. And I left my family and went to Memphis. Memphis 10 hours Tennessee. Away. And you know, a lot different culturally than I was, you know, in Wichita Falls, Texas, you know, and so, but I loved it. It was huge for me to kind of experience other things than what I grew up experiencing, you know, and different types of people that didn't look like me, people that didn't act like me, people that have the same background as I did, and that was huge. That was a big deal. So,
man, so do you mind talking about that a little bit, just the differences? Because, for example, I'm originally from Southern California.
Okay.
Moved to Texas in the 10th grade.
Yeah.
Back in 2008. Listen, it was totally, like, I felt like everything, I mean, the air felt different.
Yeah.
You know, it was literally dry heat in California.
Yeah.
You come out here to the South and there's all this moisture in the air. And, like, I feel like I'm sticky.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like everything was different. So can you kind of talk to some of the differences that you experienced from Wichita and going up to Memphis?
Yeah, absolutely. So So small town, the school, Holiday High School was, I'll just be honest with you, it was all white. All white. I think we had one black family that lived. His name is Raymond. He was a year older than I was, but primarily all white. And so to go to Memphis, and the diversity of Memphis was something that I wanted something different because I wanted to experience how to live differently and also, do ministry different than what I grew up doing. Small town, I grew up Southern Baptist, so small church, and I'm grateful for all that. Grateful for that heritage and my parents and what I experienced. But going to Memphis, it was a larger town. I call it it's a big small town, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
1.2 million or 1.5 million. There's over 3,000 churches that are in Memphis. Yeah, so I went as a seminary student. I was young and following my mentor, as I mentioned, and he started with some other guys at church there in Memphis, and so I just plugged in. I said, hey, I want to go where you're going. So I started as a middle school pastor at this church, and so the differences was huge for me because I remember going to different areas in Memphis that later, I didn't know this. I met with someone else. I brought out a map and I was like, okay, I've been here and here and here and here. And this guy said, Lance, never go there again. And I was like, well, and it was not good places. There's this place called Orange Mound that if you're white and you're in that area, you may, I don't know, something bad could have happened, right? And I have no clue. I was just driving around checking things out, and so that honestly, it was like, oh wow, this is a lot different than what I grew up. But it became one of those things where, man, I loved the barbecue. The Memphis barbecue versus Texas barbecue, I can't eat pork here. I can't. It's
really?
Brisket. Yeah, because when you have pork here, it's not the same as Tennessee barbecue. So, but anyway, so those differences really kind of helped shape the way that I see people, love people, and again, grateful for the heritage, grateful for my family and what I experienced back home, but for me to be able just to to minister to all types of people and students, because I was primarily a student pastor for many years there, and be able to go into different types of schools that I didn't grow up going to, different type of environments. I remember picking up guys that lived in the ghetto, not Orange Mound, but it's called Binghamton, and I'd pick up guys and take them to church. Like I'd drive through, they'd hop in my truck, and then we would go to church, to the student ministry or Sunday morning, to places that if you were to go to those places back home, it's like you just don't go over there, right? You don't go to that side of town. But I loved it. It was such a refining time for me, and that has really affected the way that I do ministry now.
It's funny sometimes the similarities that you have with people, because so when I lived in California, we're originally in the Los Angeles area, so we lived in all these very ethnically diverse places. But I was still pretty young when we moved to a city called Redlands. Redlands is one of those cities where we were the only black. Like I knew every African American child. It was like 5 of us at one point, and 3 of them were in my family. Yeah. Right? In the entire school, right?
Yeah.
And so I got to experience that, but every time we go to be with family or something, it's a totally different culture.
Yeah.
And then come back home and go to school, and it's totally different. So it's interesting how people end up in those situations. And then when we moved to Texas, it was, as far as school is concerned, it was a big change, because now I'm not in a predominantly white school anymore. I'm in a predominantly Hispanic and African American school now. I'm like, oh, this is not the same at all. So it's just interesting to see how people end up in different situations.
And God knows all about it. Like He's sovereign. He knew that was going to happen to you, right? And be in those different places.
Absolutely. So I think that's awesome. But a question I have to ask every person that we speak to: how did you get saved? How did you come to Jesus?
So I mentioned this earlier, grateful for my parents and my spiritual heritage, if you will. My parents loved the Lord. They loved church. It was a regular rhythm for them. So I tell people I was in church 9 months before I was born, right? It was like one of those that it just was a part of our life. And so, so for me, being in church, knowing, going to Sunday school, going to worship service and all that stuff, I did it, but it wasn't until I was in my 7th to 8th grade year that God really kind of opened my eyes to sin, and that without Him that I would not be with, after this life I wouldn't be with Him. And it was at a youth camp that I went to, and I guess the speaker, he said some great things, and then I just started thinking about it more and more, and just think about the things that my parents taught me, and whatnot. And I just remember I didn't make a decision there to put my faith and to follow Jesus. It was later. I was with my youth pastor, and I can still remember this one Wednesday night on the way home. It was one of those where I was in a small town where the youth pastor would like go around and pick you up and take you to youth ministry. It's kind of weird. That's what I did in Memphis as well. But anyway, and so I remember he was dropping me home, and we just started this conversation about sin and the gospel and our separation. And I said, those are things that God has been teaching me or showing me about myself. And I want to make sure I'm right with the Lord. And so this is my 7th, 8th grade year. And in that moment, I prayed to put my faith in Jesus, and it wasn't nothing real special or anything like that. Scripture says if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and you believe in your heart that God raised Him from the dead, you'll be rescued. Simple as that. And that's what I did. And that's what He led me to do. And so I remember going home after that Wednesday night and telling my parents, hey, I prayed the prayer and I put my faith in Jesus. And they were excited. They were, they were grateful for that moment. And so after that, I just, was baptized at my home church, and then just kind of locked in, kind of continue to do the things we've always done, right? I mean, I didn't have this really big, like I was in the gutter and God rescued me out of the gutter, but I'm grateful for that. At a young age, He captured my heart, and at a young age, now I continue to live the rest of my life following after Him. Has it been perfect? Absolutely not. Has there been deep valleys? Absolutely. But I'm just grateful at a young age that He kind of revealed sin to me and the need for a Savior. And
there's a song that I quote a lot, because first of all, I'm glad that you have a story kind of like mine. Because like when I started doing what I do now professionally, I thought I had to have some kind of horror story.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, I don't have one. I don't. But there's a song by a guy, he goes by The Truth. His name is Emmanuel Lambert. And the chorus says, I don't have a horror story. God kept me at my youth. I give Him all the glory. I thought my story wouldn't flow, but now I know. The blood of the Lamb has saved my soul. And that's my testimony.
There you go.
And so
that'll preach, man.
It will. It will. And it has. And it will again, I promise you. So I appreciate that song, and people like you with a testimony that, you don't have to go through, like you said, go through the gutter to experience the goodness of God. Maybe the goodness is that He didn't force you to go through that. So I appreciate that very much so. So you got saved at a pretty young age. And you've always been in the church, but being in the church is one thing. Moving into being a pastor is something totally different. So what moved you into ministry? How did you take that step?
So it was a few years later. It was between my freshman and sophomore year in high school. God just captured my heart for people and for ministry. And I had two examples. I had my senior pastor at my home church, First Baptist Holiday, Texas, and then my youth pastor that I mentioned earlier, and my parents. But I just remember we were on a mission trip, and on youth group, you take the mission trips around different places, and we were at, I believe we were in San Antonio, and I just remember being on that trip and working with kids and doing, backyard Bible club, things like that. And I just remember God just capturing my heart in the sense that, hey, I want you to do this for the rest of your life. And I remember, I can still remember this. We were spending the night at a church. We stayed at a church and as you know, at night, and I remember waking up and it was around midnight. I remember going up to my youth pastor and saying, "Hey, I need to talk to you about something, a nudge that I have in my spirit." And so we sat down in the gym there at that church, and I just kind of just shared what I was kind of thinking through and going through. And he said, "Lance, from what I'm hearing you say, I really feel like maybe God's calling you into ministry, or really kind of putting your heart toward the things that we've been doing here, but also in ministry." And so I kind of sat in that for a while, but through different circumstances, through God's word, through prayer, through just my parents, over the course of the next few years, he just kind of affirmed that, and I was able to step into different leadership roles at the school. I did a Bible study on campus. I just continued to be active on my youth ministry. I was able to do a few sermons that were horrible anyway, but it's like the pastor just threw the keys at me and said, "Hey, if you feel called to ministry, then I'm going to let you do it. I'm going to let you experience it." And so throughout high school, the rest of my high school time, I did that. And then when I decided to stay back home and get a business degree and go to Midwestern, I just volunteered at the church that I grew up in. I said, "Hey, I'm here. I've decided to stay local. How can I help?" And so my youth pastor said, "Hey, you take middle school and I'm going to do high school." And I was like, "I can do that." And so I stepped back into ministering to kids that were in kids church, right? Back when I was, in high school, they were in kids church, but now they're in middle school. And so it was just cool to be able to kind of experiment a little bit and be able to, see what it was like to do a lesson and what it was like to do games, these different things that you're supposed to do in youth ministry. But God just captured my heart for the next generation. He just captured my heart for these kids that didn't know who Jesus is or didn't know about the Bible, and create small groups and interactions and make it fun. I love the games we used to do in in youth ministry. And so he captured my heart at a young age to put my faith in him, but also he captured my heart at a young age for ministry. And so from there, I was available. It was one of those things. I feel like we talk about the gifts of the Spirit, but I think one of the gifts that we overlook that necessarily isn't spelled out is the gift of availability, and just saying, "Hey, I'm going to position my heart to be available to whatever God you want us to. What do you want me to do?" And so that's kind of my posture. I felt like, looking back at it, I couldn't say that then, but looking back at it now, I feel like that's how I postured myself. And because of that, he just gave me opportunities just to refine that calling, And so, which then, led me to opportunities in Memphis, and then we moved to Austin, and then now here at Hope. And so, different experiences, different high points, low points. Ministry is messy because it's made up of messy people.
Absolutely.
And but all through those experiences, I'm grateful to look back in the early season of my calling and my ministry journey, and we have these spiritual moment markers, I call them. You look back and say, God was faithful here, and then you go through life and then you see him faithful here, and you go through life, and it's those moments that I look back on and think, man, I'm going through a hard season right now, or maybe a great season, but God uses those moments to remind me of he was present then, he's present now, and he'll be present for the next thing.
Amen.
So,
that's a message all in itself right there. So I have a few questions. You mentioned Memphis, Austin, and now we're here in North Texas, north of Dallas. So we'll get to that in a second. But you mentioned doing, now the word is slipping my mind. What is the word? I can't think of it. That is wild. But anyways, you were mission trips. That's what it is.
Yes.
Can you explain kind of what that is and what you experienced on mission trips that you've?
So I mean, I've done different types of mission trips, local and international. So the one that I was on that God captured my heart for ministry was, we would show up to an apartment complex, and we would go knock on doors and get kids from the apartment complex, and then we would do, in the morning, do like Bible stories. We'd use puppets. I don't know if they use puppets these days, but anyway, we used puppets and things like that, and did games with the kids. And then in the evenings, we would actually put on a service for their parents. Like we would encourage them to invite their parents. So it was at an apartment complex. So we did that in different locations. And so that's what, for me, you know, not only did we were able to minister to children, but also we were able to minister to their parents. And it was really cool to see that, you know, and I was a student then. And so, so really, as I kind of journeyed forward in my calling, those are types of mission trips I've done in the past. I've led, you know, just to, the big thing is getting out of your comfort zone and getting into kind of a place for God to use you outside of your comfort zone, and just getting, you know, people, you know, when you can meet their need physically, then they're more apt to hear spiritually how what they need. And so those are some different things that we did. You know, we fed homeless people. We would go and provide, you know, free. It was funny. There's a great ministry here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area called Mission Arlington. And so I've taken groups to Mission Arlington, and man, they do a great job and meeting, you know, physical needs of people, of kids and families. So then we can present the spiritual need that they have through all types of different, you know, resources and opportunities. So I've been on mission trips I've been to Africa twice and went and was able to go to orphanages and go to a remote village and kind of do the similar thing. It's kind of crazy, you know, worked with the kids in the village, go out to the villages and bring them into to a location, and through translators, you know, do a Bible story, do games and things like that. And then you know, gather their parents together and you know, do kind of a revival, if you will, type meetings and stuff. So anyway,
that's just pretty awesome.
Yeah,
that's pretty awesome. So you mentioned, like you said, you went from Texas to Memphis. How do you get from Memphis to Austin?
So in Memphis, great run there. I mean, in the church that I was a part of, I was able to do different roles, and I was ended up being a campus pastor at the church that I was a part of. And so we just felt God really shift our heart toward coming back to Texas, and so you know, we it was one of those things where God really allowed us to kind of pass the baton, if you will, of ministry and what I was doing there to a young man that was in my youth ministry back early on.
Really?
Yeah. And
that's
so,
pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. And so, you know, we just felt God kind of shut that door, and it was, you know, in a positive way. There wasn't anything negative out of that, but we just decided, hey, you know, let's kind of shift our focus back to Texas as a family, and then God opened an opportunity in Austin for me to step in to be kind of an executive pastor role, and to help, you know, help develop some ministries at a new church versus the church we were at in Memphis.
Okay. So would most people consider that a step down from being a campus pastor? Because if you're a campus pastor, you're the head of that campus. Yeah. But an executive, that means someone else's head over you, technically. Yeah. Does that feel like a demotion to you, or does it just feel like, hey, I'm just going and serving in a different role? You know,
here's great question. For me, I've always gone with this notion to be present where your feet are planted. And if God calls you, even if I was a campus pastor and he called me out to be a janitor at a church, that's what God wanted me to do. Yeah. And, you know, so for that, and I love janitors at churches, by the way. Yeah. And so there's nothing against that. But in this context, it was kind of more of a lateral move. I mean, the campus pastor, yeah, I'm over the campus. The executive pastor, it just kind of depends on the setup of the church, really. At that particular church, the executive pastor was over the campus pastors. And so to move to an executive role, and you know, at the church in Austin, I was over the campuses. There were 2 campuses, and God, you know, we had a great season there, a great, you know, a run there. And my wife was in school. She was a first-year teacher. My boys were starting to get, you know, into middle school and elementary, and you know, we had a season there. And honestly, you know, we really wanted to get back closer to our family up in the North Dallas area, and in Wichita Falls. And so, you know, we made a shift, and we decided to leave what God brought us to in Austin, and to step into an opportunity here to be closer to family, but also, you know, Hope is an incredible church that's making, you know, just waves in this area. And, you know, we felt the Lord just kind of move in that direction. And so it's one of those things like that when you sense God, you know, shifting your heart. And, you know, there's pastors that's been in ministry for, you know, for a long haul, for, you know, 10, 15, 20 years. For my story and my journey, I've been able to kind of be in positions, not for like extended amount of time, but for enough time to be able to, I feel like, accomplish the calling that He brought me to that place, you know? So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Hope Fellowship, what exactly is your role here? Because you're not, I guess, the campus pastor here.
No. So my role, I serve as the group's pastor. So I oversee all of our on-site, off-site, any type of spiritual development and leadership when it comes to discipleship is what I accomplish here. So we have a great team here at this campus and at all the campuses actually. And you know, what I love to do is come alongside of people to help them. You know, just like today, we were talking about how community, we're wired for relationships and wired for community. And if you just come to church and you sit in a row and you leave, then you're missing, I would say, 90% of what church is about. You know, hearing a great message, hearing, you know, and worshiping to incredible music is awesome. But if that's all you're experiencing and you don't have relationships around you to help, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. If you don't have those relationships, then you're missing out on what God intended for church to be. So in this season, that's what He's called me to do. He's called me to be a part of a great team and a great church, and to help people, you know, really snap into really belonging in their local, you know, congregation or local church. So I've been here a year. So we moved here July 10th. Been here over a year, and wouldn't change it for the world. Wouldn't change what I'm doing. Wouldn't change how God, you know, shifted our family and my focus. And I'm being present where God has my feet planted.
That's awesome. Be present where your feet are planted.
Yeah.
First of all,
it's hard to do that in ministry, because you're always looking for something potentially.
You know
the
what?
next thing.
I wanted to touch on that because I think it's awesome that you've had the roles that you've had in ministry, which if someone's watching, they don't understand. Essentially, he's been a top dog, essentially, at some churches, and he's decided to take a role here where he's not the top dog. And there's a lot of people where their pride would not allow them to say, I'm going to submit under you when I've already been above where others are, right? So I just want to say thank you for your humility and your willingness to serve in the way that you believe God wants you to serve. Yeah. Because a lot of us,
man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a big deal, because a lot of us miss our opportunity to touch lives the way that we could. Yeah. We miss our chance to have the impact that we could have because we allow our pride to say, no, I should be here instead. Yeah. And so I really think it's an amazing thing that you're not allowing your pride to completely take over what you should be doing. Yeah. But you're saying, okay, God, there's some things I want to do, but also there's what you want to do, and how do we move forward in this? Yeah. I think that's an amazing thing.
I feel like if you're called, then you're called, period. You're not called to a position. You're called to ministry, and ministry can happen in a lot of different
anywhere,
different aspects and different ways. That's, I would just say for anyone watching, that if you're called to ministry, be open-handed, because you may be a lead pastor at a church, and then God may shift you, and you may end up being a kids director, a kids pastor. He may shift you, so just be open-handed and lean into how God's wired you, how He's gifted you, and allow that to be used to point people to who Jesus is. Our biggest responsibility, because I've found life, you have found life, we have a relationship with Jesus. Our biggest responsibility is to help somebody else find life. Amen. And so whatever that looks like, however that's done, that's the goal.
Amen.
So.
Well, I don't want to hold you up too long, but I do have a few more questions. One, I want to know, what are some of the struggles or some of the lows that you've experienced, either directly related to you being a pastor or just as you've gone through life in ministry?
Yeah.
And then after that, what are some of the highs that you've experienced?
The lows, where to begin? No, ministry, it's like you're kind of in a boat in the middle of the sea, right? And there's times where the sea is calm and you're just kind of enjoying it and fishing, and but then there's times where a storm comes and the wave starts going. And so yeah, I mean, there's been moments where I've let me just tell you this. And we had a men's breakfast here yesterday on campus, and I was just being honest about the importance of relationships and male relationships to each other as men. There was a season that I went through that was very difficult, and that to the point where I felt lost. I felt like I was in this boat in the middle of the ocean by myself and just drifting. And I was in ministry, I was a pastor. I felt alone. I felt like I didn't really know. I felt like I was not functioning the way that I should have been functioning. And so, however, I was able to reach out to some friends that weren't necessarily around me physically, but they were close friends I reached out to and said, "Hey, I need your help. I need your thoughts. I need your encouragement," and encouraging two ways. One, I need some positive things said to me, but also I need an encouragement of correction. And because encouragement, we look for the things that that will. I'll knock down your door for you to encourage me in a positive way, right? I'll follow you around if you'll just encourage me. But we shy away from the encouragement piece of correction and to spur one another forward. And so there was a season where I needed that, because I was going through just a desert season, a dry season. And I look back and some of it was that I was I was lonely. I felt isolated. And there's, to some degree, I chose that. And then I just felt like that, man, maybe I missed the mark. In my ministry, I was like, am I supposed to be where I am? Where I am, And so that's where I went to counseling for the first time. And I truly believe in finding someone you can talk to about ministry and about life, in a safe place to be able just to, because I feel like there's healing in that. And so my first time, I've been in ministry since 2001. That was my first time I went to counseling. And so side note, I mean, that's anyone in ministry needs to go to counseling, period. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you need a safe place to be able to share the things that you're struggling with, the things that you're wrestling with, and for someone to give you a perspective. And this counselor in particular reminded me of God's sovereignty, reminded me of my calling, reminded me of where God placed me, and it's not by accident, it's for a purpose. And so that was a low season for me. But thankfully I'm not there anymore. Amen. And because of trusted friendships, because of my wife that actually scheduled the counselor for me, and she walked with me through that. That looking back on that, I'm grateful for that season in a way, and I'm grateful that I'm not there anymore. The high times have been those moments where I'm having conversations with someone, and I was just like my friend that you interacted with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he moved us in, and he and I exchanged phone numbers. We met up at a coffee shop, and in that conversation, was able just to have that conversation about Jesus, and he put his faith in Christ. You know. Those are high moments for me, to relationally connect with someone that's far from God, or that maybe they're exploring faith, you know. And so young guys that feel the calling to ministry, just sitting down and saying, here's my journey, here's kind of what I've gone through. For me, that gives me life. For me, that gives me like, man, I want to pour into you, because God has poured, and through other people have poured into me. Mm-hmm. I want to empty my cup. I want to encourage you. I want to share my perspective or my journey so that it would encourage your journey. You know, those, for me, those are the high moments. And that's happened in different capacities, of course, at the different churches and experiences. But it's really, over the last year, has really kind of flourished for me personally here in this season. And maybe because I'm just in a healthier spot, maybe, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Or I'm being more receptive of just saying yes, and just saying my yes is on the table. God, if you want to nudge my heart to talk to that guy, or to pray with that person, or even to ask my waiter or waitress, hey, we're about to pray. How we did that, right?
Yeah.
How can we pray for you? It's just responding to those nudges, and then letting God do His thing, you know. And so I feel like, man, those have been the high moments for me. Are those one-on-one relational opportunities?
Yeah, I can attest to some of that as well. The chance to see the impact, the positive impact that you can make on a person individually. Yeah. It's like, you know, you can be on the stage speaking, and that's cool, but when you get off and it's just you and that person, and they share with you, and they're like, I needed you for this. Mm-hmm. That's what takes everything. Like, for me personally, it takes everything to a whole nother level. Yeah. It's so much better than being on the stage. It's seeing somebody say, you know, thank you for this, or I put my trust in Jesus for this. Yeah. One of the high moments for me, is my grandfather heard me speak one Sunday, and after service, he said that he wants to get baptized now.
Oh, that's...
I was like, what?
Yeah.
You know? So that's one of the highest moments of my life.
I love it.
Right there, because my grandpa, I mean, he's been to church before. He's read scripture before. There's a lot, but for him to say, like, after listening to you, this is what I want to do. Like, he's had that opportunity his entire life. Yeah. So
what a great honor, man.
It's one of the biggest honors of my life. I truly, it's that. And he later on said that he waits for the times where I'm speaking in service. Like he's looking forward to that, because he gets something from me when I speak.
I'm excited to hear you, man. I want to hear you.
We'll see. One of these days. I'm not opposed to it, so I'll definitely let you know next time I'm speaking. I'll shoot you a text for sure.
You know, I think the thing, and you hit on it, it came to my mind, it's just when you're present with people, then you get to experience those honor moments.
Yes.
You know, and it's when we rush through and we're not, I think it's Max, someone that's wrote a lot of books, said to walk slowly through the crowd, right? John Maxwell. And it's, and when you walk slowly through the crowd, and sometimes that's like literally at church, right? When but when you're walking slowly with people, and you're giving people the time, the attention, then that's when we get to experience those honor moments that, and it could be even with your own family members, right?
Yeah.
I just recently was able to lead my youngest son to the Lord, and it was just because he started. He asked how he could help. He's a helper, and he was organizing some books in my office at the house, and he pulled out these cards that were the Romans road to different Roman card, and so he said, Dad, what are these? And I could have said, oh, they're cards, and went on, but no, I just felt like, be present with them. Let's look at these verses together, and to get his thoughts around those verses. And then one thing led to another. He said, he's 9 years old, that I want to say that prayer, you know?
That's
and so
awesome.
anyway, that was cool. That's a cool moment.
That's awesome. And I love the fact that as a pastor, you're not like forcing your children like you have to do this.
Oh, no.
You know, like at 9 years old, that by the time he was 4, you could have told him like, this is what you got to do, you know, but you're allowing him.
Them having a faith of their own is so important. Yeah.
That is extremely, I've seen, you know, I'm a PK, so I've seen time and time again where, you know, the children, they're not allowed to have their own faith.
Yeah.
You're born into this, so you don't get to choose. This is it. So then when they do get to choose, they choose something else.
Yeah.
Right? But now he has the opportunity to choose for himself.
Yeah.
And there was something in you, and there was something in what he heard that said, this is what I need, this is what I should do.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
That's no greater honor, right? Just like what you said with your grandfather, you know?
Truly no greater honor. So before we get out of here, 2 things. One, what is something that you are wanting to do, striving for, want to accomplish, either in your role here or just moving forward in ministry?
It's a great question. I tell you one thing that I'm doing right now, and this would be ministry, is so I'm fasting from social media. So I don't know when I'll see this anyway, but I'm taking kind of just a hiatus, if you will, and the reason why is because I want to be more intentional with the people that are around me, because I found myself being distracted by you know, the 6-inch by 3-inch device in my hand, and just, you know, just with different social media platforms and things like that. And so one of the things that for me personally is to kind of detach myself so that I can be more present and I can be more attentive, but also so that I can help other parents understand the importance of that, because I just see that all over. I see, you know, the distraction of the device and the distraction of, and not only, you know, parents with their kids, but even you know, in our relationship with the Lord, right? We can rely on something that is artificial, that doesn't really give us the direction that we need, and we forget we have God's love letter, right? And I know that the Bible's on the phone, but there needs to be some separation sometimes, you know, that you're reading God's word, and we run to that versus run to this. And so for me, I've intentionally stopped this so I can be more, you know,
that's good.
Just come up for the Lord. So a few resources that I'm navigating through. John Mark Comer put out Practicing the Way, which is a phenomenal read. And it's talking about being an apprentice with Jesus and some of the spiritual disciplines of solitude and Sabbath and simplicity, those different things that are historically go back thousands of years of what the disciples, what they did with Jesus, and for us to kind of look at that for ourselves as well as we are following him. And so I'm trying to read more. I'm trying to soak in some of these things that I neglected, you know, because of the busyness of ministry or life and things like that. So that's what I'm doing currently, and which I know will impact my future, just how I minister with people and how I encourage people to as they journey with the Lord. And so, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Because there is no right or wrong answer to that. It's just like, you know, what do you want to do? You want to work on you.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I am right now.
A necessity. You know, others want to work on a specific project.
Yeah.
I've talked to some people. I actually talked to 3 pastors now, and they all said the same thing. They was like, I want to reach more men.
Yeah.
I said, oh, that's a coincidence.
I love it. Yeah.
It was like 3 in a row. Like, I want to talk to men. I'm like, oh, this is starting to be a trend. It's a weird trend. It's not what I was expecting with that question.
Yeah.
But that's more than okay. And you actually said something that's really awesome, because I found myself in times past also running to this when I shouldn't, and even like not reading scripture, but just like watching a YouTuber who's a Christian.
Yeah.
And like they put scripture and stuff, so like that's my intake of scripture. But it's like it's not the same.
Yeah.
You know, YouTube videos, you need to get into the Word. You know, open up the Bible itself.
Yeah.
And read that. So I had to like put alarms and stuff on my phone and say, hey, we're jumping into the word now, we're jumping into prayer now, or like this is the time set apart for that. So it's really awesome that you're doing that, because it is very easy to get sidetracked by all that these things can bring and put in front of you. So my very last question, and we can get out of here, what is something that you would like to say or leave with whoever might see this moving forward?
That's a loaded question.
It take all the time you need. You want to take a moment to think about it. Feel free.
No, I think just prioritizing, if you're called into ministry, prioritizing the calling that you have and being intentional to surround yourself with other voices that can encourage you to move forward, but also that can help you, just really stretch beyond yourself. I think I mentioned about kind of the different from, you asked questions about back home and Memphis and things like that. Really reaching beyond yourself. Have conversations with people that don't look like you. Have conversations with people that don't have the same background as you, because God uses those conversations to refine who you are, but also to impact them as well. And so I think being open-handed, allowing God to do His thing, what He desires to do through you versus what you want to do, because most times what you want to do goes beyond what He wants to do, and sometimes what He wants to do is a lot slower than how you want to do things. And so I know that in this season that's been reality for me. And so remind yourself that God is sovereign. Remind yourself that He loves you, that you're valuable, and your identity is in and through Him. And just don't overcomplicate it. Don't overthink it, and just move forward. So that's what I would. That's what awesome. I thought of. So
well, I appreciate you, sir.
Yeah, man.
We'll definitely we're in contact for sure. So we'll be speaking pretty soon. But ladies and gentlemen, this is how pastors are made. This is Pastor Lance, one of the pastors here at Hope Fellowship in Prosper, Texas. And I love you. God loves you. And once again, find somebody and find a way to do something good. We're done.
Awesome, man.